everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's been a little minute since our last video. We have been busy, but not cars that you may be interested in. But today we're going to do another how-to video, but on something that we haven't done already, which is an Eunos Roadster, Mazda MX5. This is an import. It's an NA MX5 Eunos Roadster, and she's a little bit ripe in areas. She's not awful, but she's here to be brought back to her former glory, and we will show you how, because we're good like that. So as you can see here at D7R, we're kind of partial to the old MX5. That is Martha. That is my own personal MX5 that I've been restoring in the background. I should have done a video on it, but it's one of those things where that takes second place to the Clio and to customer cars most importantly. But this is a pop-up headlight one, and that shouldn't look like that, because that is an NB, which is supposed to just have normal headlights, but I have done a Mark 2.5 full conversion on it. So it's got the Xenon headlights, facelift front, rear end, interior bits and whatnot. Not too much different, same shape but different car. So this is having sill work, rear sill work. The arches are good in it. They're not usually, but they are decent in this. So a little bit of flaws down the sides of the inner sills. Bottom of the wings are being replaced on the front. If you're American, fenders, they're going to be cut and replaced because they're a bit ripe. And he didn't realise how bad it was until he tried to jack it up. Jack went up, car stayed on the floor, which is a big indicator that you might have a problem underneath. But that's why it's here. We have another one directly after this, which has got different problems. It's a bit of a cleaner car, same colour, so it's almost a doppelganger. And these cars are here, they're going to get repaired. Then they're off to one of our friends, which is going to paint it. So they're going to have full resprays on both. So what we don't do on this one, we'll show you what we do on the other one, and we sort of stitch them in. So this video might be a little bit long-winded, but it's going to feature two MX5s, and we're going to show you a couple of different areas which you might see or might not see if I do just the one. So bonus episode, winning. First of all, what we're going to do is get her on the ramp. This is a lowered car, which is like the bane of my life in this place, because not only do we do classic cars, most classic cars that come in this joint are pretty much modified and usually low. So we're going to jack it up. We're not going to do the sills because that's a problem area. So we're going to jack it up by the lower control arms on the rear. And hopefully if we get it high enough, we can get the ramp arms underneath the front and the back. And we're going to go off the middle chassis rails. There's two runners which go down the centre of the car, one either side. And we're going to stick the ramp arms under there because I believe they're fairly solid on here, but we'll soon find out. But the other car, they're solid, but they're dented. So we're going to cut them areas out and we're going to be repairing them so they're nice and flat. Let's go. You don't care what you're doing to me. I've been down in the ruins so deep. All the games that you played, all the love you forsaken, you let it slip away. You don't care what you're doing to me. Every setback, every mishap, every time you say you gon' change. Say you get it, you regret it, I forgive it, but you stay the same. You should cry an ocean for me, for the dumb shit and the damage you've done. Cause I've been crying oceans for weeks. Tried to fight it, but I'm drowning alone. Sister, save me now. Save me now. Whoa. Sister, save me now. Save me now. Whoa. Right, let's get to the business end. Underneath the car, as you can see, she's quite ripe. But these are your problem areas up here where the roof drains are. This has been repaired before, poorly. The old underseal or protection barrier that they coat the car with from factory is a bit leggy, to say the least now. It's 30 years old, so it's starting to laminate away. This is where I was on about, where he was jacking the car up and the car stayed on the floor and he's gone through there, so that's got to be addressed. Another patch there with loads of pigeon shit welding. Over here's more of the same, even though it hasn't gone through, but it's still ripe, so we'll be chopping these areas out and replacing them. It's a bit ripe there. All that'll be stripped back. All up here is on these sills. This area's been replaced at some point and then covered with seam sealer of some sort, but we'll be addressing that. But the stuff you can see is here, lower sills. And on the back here, back of the sill, lower arch, that needs replacing. It's leached over to this part, which is part of your sill. These are usually fairly solid, so I'll strip this back and then we'll go from there and see how bad it is, whether it needs to be chopped out and replaced or not. Customer did order some replacement sills, but it doesn't take a blind man on a wooden rocking horse to notice that that's probably closer to transit van fitment than it is MX5. Look how boxy it is. And then look how round that is. So whatever we replace on the sill on here, we're going to be making from scratch. These panels are rotten. It's been repaired before. There's a big, lovely patch been welded in there. There's supposed to be some bolt holes, so that tells me that underneath here is rotten, and that's going to be a pig to get off because it's probably been welded to the sill. We've got some repair panels over here. Clock and home, or whatever they're called. I've used these before. As you can see, a lovely straight line there where they sort of bash forming. But they are probably the better ones you can get hold of. We've got some rear arch replacements here, and quite frankly these are not the best either. We need this section more than any, and as you can see, I'm not really going to be using them. I'll probably line it up and I'll probably have to just make some new ones, but I don't want to be going that high because it doesn't need it. But that's both the same, so buy a good panel. Customer didn't know what he was ordering, he just ordered a set of panels, and that's no fault of his. It's just like when you've been doing it a while. If they're cheap, there's usually a reason behind it. Over to driver's side. Bottom of the wing again, rotten. It was probably better than the other side before it got the jack put through. Sills don't look too bad. There's a bit here. I don't know whether you can hear it, it's a bit crispy, but we'll be stripping all this back with a wire wheel, also known as John the Baptist, because he baptizes things, especially rotten metal. So that's a bit ripe up there. Again, it's leached over to the actual sill. Up here's rotten, and here's rotten. So we may have to cut up there, because this is quite far up. But as I said, this car's going to get done, then it's going to be sent to the body shop to go and get painted. There's a little rust bubble there, so I'll strip that back and see if there's a hole there or something forming. But it's just another little thing to address. These chassis rails are decent. 9 times out of 10. They've gone over a speed bump or a curb or something and they've sort of flattened them. I wasn't told to do them on this one, but it's a specific to repair on the second car we got in. They need stripping back anyway, but I'll try and knock them flat and try and reshape them a little bit. They're a good place to jack the car up from, providing that they are still metal and not just remnants of rust. Jack these cars up from this point here, or here, because as you can see, it's a big burly piece of steel. And they don't tend to rot out, they always look worse than they are. But a good wire wheel on them and they come up nearly as good as new, even though they're 30 years old. So it only tends to be the bushes that rot in them. It's very rare they actually rot completely out. It's just surface rust. So a good clean up on it, and usually jobs are good in. So yeah, that's about it. Chassis rails on here. If you go on my previous videos and seen the MX5 I did before, which was a Mark II or Mark 2.5, can't remember which one, but either same thing. All this rots out on them. And on the Mark 1, best part about it is they don't tend to do that on here. You get a little bit of surface rust on them 9 times out of 10. So they're good both sides. A little bit of surface here, but nice and solid. And that is the joy of a Mark 1 over a Mark II, or NA versus NB. So there you have it. First things first, we want to be taking the wheels off because we've got to access the fronts and the rears. So we want to get into here as well, the inner flitches, check all there all right. So we've got a locking wheel nut on the one, the rest are 21mm. So let's get to it. So that's your wheel off now and put in a safe place. So that'll stay at the rear and to the left. So it'll go back on its original place. And then put your locking wheel nuts and your rest of your wheel nuts back on the hub so you don't lose them. Simples. Right, so that's all your wheels off now. All the nuts are on the hub. So then we can start assessing the rust on the inner rear flitches. This side's not too bad. It's been repaired before by the look of it. We'll try and neaten that up a little bit. The front, if we come around here, need to undo these, which are probably going to snap. Little 8mm. And we're going to find the best place to cut and join our new sections in. I know full well we're going to have to make a piece under here for this to bolt to, like OEM. And then should be jobs are good in. Right, as a bit of prep, we've got some panel wipe on a rag, and we've gone round and give it a bit of a clean up. It's not the best, but doesn't really need to be because we're chopping that out. We've done that on all 4 corners. So you can see the mess that is left, what they've done before. And I'm just trying to figure out what's the best side to attack from. It's usually the worst first. And that's probably going to be this side, driver's rear, because we're going to have to go all the way up here. We don't really have to do that on the other side, but we probably will anyway, just so it matches. She's rusty here. So what we're probably going to do is cut down this door line here. Cut along there and try and separate that part there to try and keep this intact if we can, and see if we can clean it up. If not, we'll be chopping it out. And yeah, it looks bad, but let's see what the inside's saying, because they tend to rot worse on the inside. But where it's been jacked up before, jacked up is jacked up, because it's folded the sill up. And that's something we need to address. So let's get to it. So what we've got is our driver side rear repair panel. And we're going to be marking out where we want to cut. We don't want to be welding in there. So the line's there, and we're going to line it up and draw our cut line. Like so. It's never easy to do this bit. So that's sort of what we're going to use. So we'll cut that out, then offer it up to the car. Right, so now we've trimmed our panel roughly where it needs to be. You can sort of see how out of shape it is. It's got to sit along this line. It's not quite straight, but we can manipulate that how we need it to. But the main concern is how far out it is at the bottom. But don't panic. We're probably going to chop most of this off and then make another panel with an L section, so it goes onto our new sill section that we'll be making for the inner. Because if we lined it up, it's about 20mm at the bottom, out, and about 10 at the top. But we'll be chopping all this out so you can pretty much get it where you want it to sit. This panel's all over the place, so that's getting chopped out. But don't worry too much. That is not right, that's not how that's supposed to sit, so we can easily cut that out and then make our new panel and join it up at the bottom, because we need to make a new lower sill section. Sack the juggler, I'm dropping everything here. So what we're going to do now is mark out around here. We don't want to be cutting down there because this panel is going to sit over this panel. So we're just going to chop some out of here. We're going to do a rough guide to where we want it to sit. It's pretty much bang on that line once we've cut the original panel out. So we could cut down this door shut here. We've got about 30 or 40mm we can chop off this back edge here, which is ideal because if you're doing a Mark II, they're usually pretty short and you have to add the section in to get it to match up with the sill. I don't know what they're thinking when they make these panels, but it is what it is. And this is what we've got to work with. This is all rippled here from where it's come out of the former. So we'll panel beat this. We'll put some imitation spot welds in. So while this is still sort of in place, we'll get a measurement of the spot welds and we'll use our trusty center punch, what we've done in our previous videos, and put some imitation spot welds in because we'll bond it from the inside and then weld it and whatnot, as you do. We're going to mark out our panel on here. Always cut below the line because you don't want to take too much off. So I know there's a gap down this door shut here. So we'll be, instead of going straight to the end like we have for the other one, we're going to do a rough cut line, probably 10mm, freehand. Good job I was okay at drawing at school. You could be a bit more methodical if you want and put some lining tape in and then trace around that. But for the purpose of this, it's going to freehand it because then I can chop it out afterwards where it needs to be. We're going down this wheel arch because it's completely the wrong shape because it's all bent and laminated from the inner panel and it's flared out and got all wobbly, so we're going to chop that off and hopefully we can get the replacement panel to sit more flush against this and we can see what we need to trim.
Swear I cannot do no wrong. Why I don't have much to say? All that talking on the phone, but you never making plays. Playing phone tag, you're it. Pick up more bags, too legit. Swear I cannot do no wrong. Why I don't have much to say? All that talking.
Right, so now you've trimmed your panel, we're going to get a screwdriver. Try not to damage anything. Like up here, you don't want to be damaging this shut line. And you just want to be trying to peel it back as best you can. Doesn't look as bad as I expected in here, but it's still pretty bad nonetheless. And obviously full of filler, which I also expected. All this is filler and falling off. Don't have to be too gentle with it. The spot welds down the bottom of here. You can see one's just popped. Just want to be delaminating it like so. And she's pretty ripe in there, but she ain't the worst I've seen. Ooh, beautiful. Spider's nest. Oh, she is right in there, Jesus. Try not to get it in your eyes. But I'm going to go and get a hammer in a minute and just try and get as much of this out as possible. Try not to chop too much out because you need as much of this as a reference point to make your new panel, because we're going to be making inner sills. These are completely gone, but we also need a datum point so we can measure to and find out where to start and where to finish, so you can make your new panel and it'll be accurate.
All that talking on the phone, but you never making plays. Playing phone tag, you're it. Pick up more bags, too legit. Swear I cannot do no wrong. Why I don't have much to say? All that talking on the phone, but you never making plays. Playing phone tag, you're it. Pick up more bags, too legit. I love when the money come. I get bored, I'm thumbing some. Blues and pinks, I'm running on. In my lane, no one-on-one. Fake love, I'm allergic to. Real love, yeah, I need me some. Call my bae and book a trip. Bring the kids, let's run it up. She like us some Louis V. I like me some Louis too.
Right, so if you're in the market to buy a Mark 1 MX5 and it looks fairly tidy on the outside, it's got a little bit of rust showing, rearing its ugly head underneath on the sill, as did this one. Expect to see that. When people ask me for quotes on these cars when I'm restoring them, and they ask me, they basically hold me over a barrel for a price, and it's impossible because you never know how bad they're going to be to repair the stuff you can't see. I mean, up here, bits of flaking off here, but that's going to need, it's going to need some inner arch work, inner flitch, as I call it. But yeah, expect the other side to be relatively the same. These cars rot from inside out, like in there. You can't really tell, but it's minging in there as well. All up in there, so that is all this section where your roof drain is. So we need to cut all this out, put a piece in with a 90 bend on it, which is about 20 mil if I remember right. Then we need to make another bit, so we're going to double it up. Then we need to make this bit, so we'll clean up this inside and out, chop out all the nastiness. We've got to cut this off because there's another inner sill behind there, and we'll try and box that section up to add strength. But as I said, don't just go gung-go and chop everything out, because you need all this as a reference point for your measurements to make your new pieces. So there you have it. That's what the inside of 98% of MX5s look like, Mark 1 or Mark 2. The only things that don't rot as bad on these ones, as I said earlier, is the chassis rails. You're usually quite lucky with them, but the rest of them, they're as bad as Mark 2s. So when someone says they don't rust as bad as Mark 2s, well, call bullshit, because if you don't take this into account, expect to be paying quite a hefty bill in welding, especially if you're doing it properly. And always do it properly. Don't get your mate Steve down the road who's going to do it on your drive because it's 50 quid or 100 quid. Do it properly, because these cars will thank you for it in the end, and so will your wallet. Now that most of this is chopped out, you can get your repair panel and line that up. And you can see why I didn't chop all the way to the end. It's still not quite right. The shape of this panel needs to bow out more here, so it'll need a little bit of panel beating to get it to the shape it needs to be. That's completely wrong here, so we'll probably trim that off and then make a section and stitch that in. But it's not too far off. With these panels, this section on the replacement panel was probably a bit on the piss, pardon my French, but yeah, they're never straight. So when you line this up, there's probably 10 mil difference. So you can draw a line to where you've cut to this side and to this side, and you can see how far it's out, which is relatively about there. If I get the panel out the way, this is why I said cut your line as your dating point across the top of the car. Underneath the line you need to, then you can fettle the rest to fit how you like. So this arch section here needs to be folded out a touch, so we'll panel beat that out, and then it should slip nicely over here. But remember, we need to chop this out, then remake a new section. So either way, this has got to be perfectly mated to this section. You don't want no gaps, otherwise moisture will set in and then it'll be a restart. Right, a little bit of fettling. There's no magic tricks to panel beating. There is if you're trying to do paintless dent removal, but if you're at this point and this section is sitting inward and needs to go outward, I've just used my vise, my ball peen hammer, and just basically massaged it to where I wanted it to sit. So I needed this bottom section to fold out a touch, but keep an even pressure. Go across the line and don't really hit this section here because you don't want to batter this. But she's a lot closer. Then what you do is you draw your line. So my line's there. And I can trim a little bit off here, slightly at an angle. And I should get a nice line there. This needs to be trimmed down here. There's probably about 45 mil to come out. And I can trim up there. Then this can be welded in. But not before we do underneath and do the inners. This isn't quite right, so I might have to trim it a bit here so I can have a bit more manipulation, and I can probably chop that out and get the right profile I need to go in there, because this repair panel is nowhere near where it needs to be. It's about 20 mil proud, so there's going to be like a 20 mil gap between where it needs to sit and where it actually sits. Well, all in all, you get the general idea. I'll put some imitation spot welds in here. There will be some actual spot welds, but they'll just be for show. And that'll bond these two panels together. As you can see, that's too low because that's supposed to come off at that angle and sit up here. Right, so other panel's off now. That's sort of to shape where we need it to sit. And we're going to be tackling this section here. I stopped filming and I called the owner of the car and I've let him know what I've found so far. Any good restorer should do that because no one wants an unexpected big bill. I know that quite a lot of this car is rusty and it's rustier than the customer was expecting. So he's going to pop up after work and he's going to have a look. So I'm going to crack on cutting this section out. He did say him and his dad was going to tackle this car, but I think this is not on many people's pay grade, unfortunately, especially for a hobbyist. But we're going to chop out what we need. So I need to cut this section out here, then make a pattern because I need to make a section which goes to the bit which is rotten behind it, and I also need access to repair the panel behind this one here. Right, so as you can see now, I've got the wire wheel on here. This has all been repaired before and it's full of body filler. So we're going to chop this section out across here, up there, and replace all this here as it should, and not looking like that because that is minging. So if we chop it out, we'll take some measurements. I think they're about 50 mil across here. Then you have to have a 20 mil lip, and that'll be the first starting point for our jacking point. So that's quite important. Obviously, where they've botched it before, it's not got the strength because it's still rotten where they've tried to patch it up. Yeah, it might look pretty, but it's really not, is it? I mean, it's not even remotely pretty. It's just well hidden. And they've not even made any sort of attempt to try and make it look okay. They've just laid it up with body filler. So get some measurements and start chopping this out. And this is where the magic's going to start happening. .350 by 50, just like a fork. 350 by 350 long. So you need a 70 mil with a 20 mil recess, like 20 mil 90 degree off that. So let's get to it. So we're going to take our fresh sheet of steel. We're going to mark out 350, which is there. Then we said 70 mil. Which is here. Tighten that up. We can run that across there. And we need a 20mm lip. Like so. So we're going to fold that at 90 degrees, we're going to cut that out, and that should be our first little section. There is some ripply little bits, but we'll add that in just because it makes it look a little bit nicer and a bit more OEM. So time to start cutting. Right, so this finishes there, so we're going to line that up there, and that's our 350mm to there. So what we've got to do is mark this out. We'll have to trim this section off because we need to make a section which is going to fold around here. And then there's also some little rib sections here. We need to try and put that in the best we can.